Hello everyone. Disasters are merciless, like the recent Level 5 fire in Taipo Wang Fuk, which caused heavy casualties. All Hong Kongers mourn together, and people from all walks of life are contributing money and effort. It really feels like the Hong Kong spirit of solidarity is back again. I hope that this time Hong Kongers can join hands and get through this difficult period together. This also reminds me of a nuclear power station in the UK that costs 7.2 billion, but only produces 91 or 124 fish a year. In contrast, China's approach to Spain and Japan is worlds apart. For example, China imports seafood from Spain. They went there to build a super battery factory. Now, Japan has entered a deadlock of anti-China sentiment. China had just started to resume imports in November, but after the first batch of Japanese seafood, they immediately halted it again. At the same time, China suddenly announced the import of farmed aquatic products from Spain, creating a stark contrast. On November 17th, the General Administration of Customs of China announced that, effective immediately, farmed aquatic products from Spain that meet inspection and quarantine requirements would be allowed to enter China. The main reason why China previously did not allow the import of farmed aquatic products from Spain involved multiple factors such as inspection, quarantine, and sanitary registration, as well as historical trade disputes. In February 2017, Vigo, Spain, cited the fact that Chinese soft squid trawlers had not registered with the European Union for sanitary purposes, and as a result, did not allow Chinese Zhoushan transported squid products to clear customs for entry into Europe for a year and a half. By August 2018, 4 Spanish ports, including Valencia, adopted similar measures. This led China to impose corresponding restrictions on Spanish aquatic product trade. Later, when Spanish Prime Minister Sanchez from the Socialist Workers' Party, who maintains friendly relations with China, took office in 2018, he called on the EU to change its stance toward China. Spain's King Felipe VI just visited China this November, marking the first visit by a Spanish monarch to China since 2018. This is seen as a new symbol of the strengthening relationship between China and Spain. Foreign media suggest that Spain is leveraging its presence in Beijing to counterbalance the deterioration of its relations with the United States. After the Spanish king's visit to China, a series of economic and trade developments followed. Notably, Spain is the second largest automobile producer in the European Union after Germany and is making a full effort to transition to electrification. The global battery giant, China's KTL, has invested in building a large-scale lithium iron phosphate battery factory in Spain. This factory is a joint venture between KTL and the multinational car manufacturer Stellantis, with each holding a 50% stake. Announced on November 26th, the construction of this large battery plant involves a total investment of 4.1 billion euros, making it the largest single Chinese investment in Spain. The factory is planned to begin production by the end of 2026, with a projected capacity that could reach 50 gigawatt hours. An executive from KTL announced that their company will train up to 4,000 local operators for the Spanish factory and also pledged that the Chinese side will be committed to sharing technology to support Europe's energy transition. This project has also received 300 million euros in funding from the European Union, which indicates that the EU is directly applying stricter trade regulations towards China. However, Europe's actual dependence on Chinese technology is still obvious. Spain's Minister of Industry and Tourism, Héctor Gómez, called this factory the best contribution Spain can make to Europe's reindustrialization. He said, "We are creating the best investment example in Spain and across Europe." And he also emphasized that technology transfer is crucial to this project. Gómez said, "We need to learn from those who possess the technology, and this is rooted in a spirit of cooperation, also carrying their vision for Europe's strategic autonomy." Spain is opening its doors to countries around the world, and especially needs to be open and honest with countries like China. He said, "This is just the first step. With strengthened cooperation between Spain and China, Spain's economic performance this year has been strong. Recently, the Spanish government even raised its macroeconomic outlook, increasing this year's GDP growth forecast from the previously expected 2.7%. It has been raised to 2.9%, a figure that is significantly higher than the EU's average growth forecast of 1.4% for this year. Germany, the world's third largest economy, has a GDP growth forecast of only 0.2% this year, and the full year growth is expected to be just 0.8%. As for the UK, which is not part of the EU, its GDP growth rate is also projected to be only 1.5% this year. Spain's economic performance this year far surpasses that of other major European countries. Is Spain's pragmatic economic development and good relationship with China what makes it stand out among Europe's major nations? The most typical behavior of major European countries is self-sabotage, with prominent features being radical environmentalism and extreme anti-China sentiment. For example, Germany blew up its own advanced coal and nuclear power plants. The UK is also quite extreme. Recently, it was revealed that they spent $7.2 billion to save just over 100 fish. According to a report by The Times on November 25th, the environmental bill for their country's Hinkley Point nuclear power plant was disclosed. According to reports, this nuclear power plant in Somerset, UK, boasts the most advanced fish protection system among similar nuclear projects. The British media jokingly call this device the fish disco, but in reality, it's a sonic deterrent system. It is also equipped with low-flow intake screens and a comprehensive fish guidance system. Through specially designed pipelines, fish that accidentally enter the nuclear plant's drainage facilities are redirected back to safe waters to avoid death. This expensive environmental protection facility costs as much as £700 million, or about 7.2 billion Hong Kong dollars, and the contractor for this nuclear power station is EDF Energy. Recently, a simulation was conducted to assess the effectiveness of this environmental protection facility, and the results were truly astonishing. According to the data, this fish disco saves fewer than 100 flounders, 18 West African fish, and 6 haddock each year, a total of just 124 fish. With a construction cost of 720 million Hong Kong dollars and assuming a 10-year depreciation period, even without factoring in annual operating expenses, the average cost per fish comes to 5.8 million Hong Kong dollars. This astonishing figure has sparked criticism from the opposition in the Legislative Council. Richard Tice, the policy chief of the far-right Reform UK Party, said that while he loves fish and all animals, it's hard to justify spending tens of thousands of pounds on each fish for the environmental facilities at Hinkley Point C nuclear power station, especially when some retired British seniors can't even afford their heating bills. In the UK, the rights and welfare enjoyed by fish seem to be much higher than those of many residents. In the narrative of mainstream Western media, far-right parties like this are often portrayed in a certain way. They are often labelled as extremely radical, but in reality, that's not the case. Many far-right politicians in Europe are actually quite pragmatic, and their popularity is rising rapidly. Take the UK's far-right Reform Party as an example. They only have a handful of seats, just 5 in Parliament, but their support is surging. While there isn't the latest polling data for the UK, a poll conducted by Ipsos in June this year showed that 34% of the British public supported the far-right Reform UK Party, 25% supported the Labour Party, and 15% supported the Conservative Party. Labour's support rate has hit a new low since October 2019, while the Conservatives' 15% support rate is the lowest since 1976. This continues the recent trend in UK general elections where traditional parties are steadily declining. For example, the annual construction cost of the Hong Kong dollar is enough to buy 124 fish each year. This was a decision made during the Conservative Party's time in power. During Boris Johnson's time as Conservative Prime Minister, Chinese capital was removed from the Hinkley Point nuclear power station investment group. These politicians followed environmental and anti-China trends, but neglected the UK's lower classes, causing public resentment. Germany's AfD party faces a similar situation. Their party leader, Weidel, was finally allowed to speak in Parliament starting from November 26th. She criticised the Merkel government's budget and the EU's opposition to the US and Ukraine negotiating a peace agreement. Weidel said that this coalition government, as it nears the end of its term, increasingly reminds people of the Titanic heading straight for an iceberg. Germany is tilting like the Titanic, and the compartments are filling with water, yet they let the band on board keep playing. The music. The captain has nothing left to say, just watching this disastrous situation unfold, because Dafu has already snatched his captain's hat and is steering the ship. Germany can no longer succeed, you people. Within half a year, indulging in these foolish farcical crises has already brought disaster, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. He said, "The current government has proposed a budget that does not comply with the constitution. You have not done your job well, and according to your promises, you should have made cuts. There was no streamlining of unnecessary donations to Ukraine, but instead you are throwing money out the window with both hands. On one side, giving €1 billion to a suspicious tropical rainforest fund, and on the other, investing €6 billion in international climate protection. Then you gave another €11.8 billion to Ukraine, and no one even knows if this money will ultimately end up in the hands of corrupt war profiteers." At this point, the camera turned to German Chancellor Scholz, whose expression was quite helpless. Idel continued to speak passionately, saying, "Thank God, through Trump, we have a real chance for peace in Ukraine, and you have contributed nothing to this. On the contrary, you have broken your promises, you have disappointed the citizens, and all you know how to do is attack with slander and insults. You oppose others instead of solving Germany's problems. You've wasted precious time and further intensified the crisis." After listening to Adel's speech, it didn't sound like Trump at all, but rather a very rational debate. Germans watched as the previous Scholz government blew up advanced coal power plants, and then this current Scholz government blew up nuclear power plants. Yet they buy electricity from France at high prices, even though France uses nuclear power to generate electricity, and their power plants are built close to the German border. I really can't make sense of these people's bizarre way of thinking. On the other hand, Weidel's thinking is much more reasonable. She suggests keeping nuclear power and resuming the purchase of cheap natural gas from Russia to lower Germans' heating costs. Naturally, more and more people will support the Alternative for Germany party. That's how it can be summed up. Spain, by maintaining friendly relations with China, managed to attract CATL to build a factory locally, which brought good economic growth. Meanwhile, the UK kicked out Chinese investment from the Hinkley Point nuclear power plant, happily spent $720 million on a fish disco, and not only blew up a nuclear power plant, but also stubbornly supported Ukraine in fighting Russia. It's like steering the Titanic straight into an iceberg. There really are so many strange things in this world that even if I wanted to talk about them all, I couldn't.